Next question, the member for Algoma-Manitoulin.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. Thanks to years of underfunding and neglect from the Liberals, rural communities across the province were already struggling with school closures, dilapidating school buildings, and teacher shortages. The Conservative cuts to education are only making life worse. On Friday, tens of thousands of parents, students, and teachers raised their voices against this government's cuts to education. Speaker, unlike the Liberals and Conservatives, New Democrats are fighting for what matters: good schools for our kids and strong public education system, so no matter where you live in this problem. And so are thousands of families across my riding, from Manitowoc to Wawa to Chapleau, from Deborah to Blind River, Elliott Lake to Espanola, and on St. Joseph Island to Manitoulin Island. Why isn't this government doing the same?
The Minister of Education.
Thank you, Speaker. I thank the member opposite for the question. I would agree that under the former Liberal government, there was a decade of stagnation in scope and performance. We saw more monies being spent in education than ever before, 60% net increase since 2003-04, 12% more teachers since then, yet less than 1% more students. And yet, even still, we saw literacy tests stagnate. We saw math numbers, math performance decline. And the question is, what was the result for that dramatic expenditure in education? And we expect better. We want to see our students succeed. We want to see graduation rates rise. We want to see more students entering the skilled trades and STEM education. We are going to do that, Speaker. We are going to do that, Speaker, by getting a good deal that protects the interests of rural education after the largest school closure program that devastated rural Ontario under the former Liberal government. Rural Ontario has an ally in this government. We will maintain the moratorium until we can ensure the economic impacts are totally considered in the PAR guidelines under our review.
Thank you. The supplementary question.
Thank you, Speaker. Once again to the Premier. Schools in my riding and in rural and northern communities across the province were closed down under the Liberals. Students are being bused long distances to get to and from school, preventing them from joining after-school activities and getting the full school experience. Students, parents, and teachers hope that this Conservative government would be different and would actually recognize the unique situation in rural, remote Northerners face. But this government cuts to education are hurting kids. Will this government listen to students and stop these cuts?
Minister.
Well, Speaker, thank you again to the member opposite for the question. You know, I just want to draw a contrast of what the former government did and their impacts on schools and what this government is doing. Under the former government, they made a decision to close more schools under one political party than every single government combined. No government closed more schools than the former Liberal government. That is their legacy in rural Ontario. Our legacy is a $550 million annual capital commitment to build new schools in rural, remote, and northern Ontario, to renew the spirit of northern communities, of rural communities who felt abandoned by the former government. We are listening to them. We are working with them to ensure that those kids feel equal, that they're not second-class citizens when it comes to their experience in education. We're going to continue to invest in new schools. We're going to continue to support rural Ontario. And obviously, Speaker, we're going to ensure that every student, irrespective of their locality, succeeds in this province.
Thank you. That concludes our question period for this morning. There being no deferred votes, this House stands in recess until 1 p.m.